All right, so hello everyone, welcome, happy Thursday. We're so excited that you all are joining us today for Global Accessibility Awareness Day. We're so excited to be doing this with y'all. I'm Sarah Clark, I'm the Digital Marketing Strategist here at Ablr, and today I'll just be doing some behind the scenes, monitoring the chat and the Q&A, so that's what I'll be doing today. So I just wanted to give a few housekeeping notes before we officially jump in. So first, today's webinar is being recorded. So look out for a follow-up email from us. We will send you the fully recorded webinar. Will include closed captions, all of that stuff. So you will get a follow-up email from us with the recording. Live transcription is enabled. So you should be able to have access to that. That's at the bottom of your screen. It should be an option. So I just want to let you guys know that. All participants, all attendees are muted upon entry. So please direct all your questions to the Q&A function within the webinar. Or you can utilize the chat feature if you have any technical issues, any comments or concerns, anything like that, and I will get back to you. I'll be monitoring that throughout the webinar, and I'll get back to you. When you enter your chat. And finally, we will allot time at the end of the webinar for a Q&A session. So please do not hesitate. Any questions you have, please submit them into the Q&A feature. And at the end, we will make sure that we get to as many questions as we can. All right, so let's get us started. Ronak, it's all you.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone. My name is Ronak, and I oversee operations and partnerships here at Ablr, which is an accessibility and disability inclusion services company. And I'm really excited to kick off this webinar with a fireside chat in recognition of the 10th anniversary of today of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which some of you may know. It's really directed about getting people talking, thinking, and raising awareness and learning about accessibility and inclusion and the more than 1 billion people around the world with disabilities. And I actually identify as one of those folks with a person as a disability with a visual impairment. And that's actually how I met Carrie Farber, who helped support me through my journey. Carrie Farber is someone who I consider as a mentor and a close colleague of mine. And she's such a storied person, but currently she is the accessibility lead over at Walmart. And I think she has an immense amount of value to provide in this fireside chat today. So Carrie, welcome to the webinar and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ronak, and thank you to the team. I'm excited to be here and happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
Thank you. So Carrie, I understand that you've had quite a few different roles at Walmart, right? Which is a massive enterprise, massive and complex business model. So can you just walk us through, tell us about your journey there and how that led you into the accessibility sector?
Absolutely. So I've been part of the Walmart family for about 15 years. And I started on the marketing creative team, working on content, strategy, copywriting, marketing, and SEO, and transitioned to our site merchandising team where I worked on customer experience, was a lead for global marketplaces, and eventually transitioned into the product organization, working on user-generated content, product detail page strategy, and ultimately accessibility. While I was learning all these new skill sets and sort of expanding my knowledge at Walmart, I was also losing my eyesight. I came to work every day without using a white cane or a guide dog because I was afraid. I was afraid of what people would think if they knew I had a disability. I was afraid of how it might impact my career growth. And I had convinced myself that there would be a negative impact in terms of people's perceptions of my ability to do my job. In 2016, I kind of came to this crossroads. I either needed to come out and share my story or potentially leave. And there were a few catalysts, or as I call them, the dose of courage, that I needed to do that. The first is I met a fellow colleague who went through a similar journey at Walmart and shared his story with me. The second was that I decided to get a guide dog. And when you show up to the office with a really cute dog wearing a harness that says Guide Dogs for the Blind, it's a little bit of a giveaway. And the last one was really a dose of humility. I was working on a Tiger team on a project that was given to us as a challenge by our CEO at the time. And after spending 6 weeks locked in a war room with many colleagues, most of whom were my senior, we did our final presentation to the executive team. It went extremely well. After that, we went across the street to a happy hour, and the team was just running on fumes of exhaustion and adrenaline. The CEO came over to me and said, "Congratulations, well done." And I said, "Thank you." And he stood there, and I stood there, and he stood there. And after the longest 15 seconds of my career, he said, "Okay, well, thanks again. Have a good one." And he walked away. And as he walked away, I realized he had been extending his hand to shake mine, but I didn't see it. So the facilitator whispered something in his ear. And I remember going back across the street to my desk and thinking, I can't do this anymore. I have to figure out a way to be me, the me with a disability. As I learned assistive technology called a screen reader, I learned that, for the first time in my career, I couldn't shop the Walmart site because it wasn't accessible. And I thought to myself, this can't just be me, right? More than 20% of the US population is living with a disability. More than 1 billion people on the planet are touched by disability. So I told myself, I have to figure out a way to turn what I think is a liability and make it an asset. Looking back on this, Ronak, I realized that in hindsight, I was my own worst enemy. It was that sort of inner jerk, right? That voice that feeds us fear. That was really what was holding me back. One of my favorite quotes is, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" And, 5 years ago, I was afraid to be me. And 5 years later, I am proud to be me, the me with a disability. I am honored to have opportunities like this to talk about accessibility inclusion. And more importantly, I'm honored to represent a community of people with disabilities.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Carrie, I can see that you've been responsible, just from knowing you personally and professionally, for leading accessibility at an e-commerce giant like Walmart, at the Fortune 1 for quite some time. And so that yields many different challenges that I'm sure that you've experienced to varying degrees. So as you think through my statement here, what are some of the most impactful changes that come to mind that you're most proud of driving in terms of accessibility at an e-commerce giant?
That's a great question. I think when it comes to impact, there's a couple of things that really stick out. Accessibility isn't a box we check, it's a shift in culture. And over the past few years, we've really seen a shift in the way that we work at e-commerce to be more inclusive and really put accessibility more at the forefront of what we do. And so, 3 or 4 years ago, accessibility didn't typically come up in meetings, right? I never heard screen readers going on, in the office or today's world on Zoom, unless I was using it. And today, I will be on calls and hear screen readers because engineers are doing live testing as we work through a particular experience. Or someone will reach out and say, "Hey, I was in this meeting and we were talking about this brand new initiative and we were, brainstorming about accessibility." And so we just see so many people talking about it and leaning in to really, really make a change and an impact. And I would say the other thing that is really, really tremendous is that we have such incredible leadership support. It started with just one executive champion. And over time, as we've had the opportunity to share more about accessibility and do live demos of what people using screen readers or other assistive technologies experience when using our various products and services, we've seen so many executives, senior level executives, really become champions and take this to their team and actually support us in building this into the definition of done. So those are some of the things that really come to mind when I think about change and impact that we've had.
Yeah, that's incredibly insightful. And stepping in that further, right? Taking a look at the other side of that in terms of the misconceptions associated with that. So given your perspective, your expertise in this space, what are maybe 1 to 2 misconceptions that you've encountered about digital accessibility that stakeholders have?
So I'll first just, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do 3. So the first is kind of the common one, right? It's expensive and it adds a lot of time. And the reality is that when you build it in from the beginning, it's really minimal. And in fact, sometimes no incremental cost or time. The other one that I want to mention is this idea that designing for the 20% only benefits the 20%. We know that designing for the 20% and really implementing inclusive design and universal design principles actually raises the bar and improves the experience for everyone. And then the last one, which is probably my favorite, I had a designer say to me once, Carrie, I can make this design cutting edge, really cool, like we're going to win awards for this, or I can make it accessible. And I remember stopping and thinking, accessibility is an and, not an or. So that cool, innovative, cutting edge experience can be accessible and win awards. And in fact, inclusion drives innovation, and some of the best experiences really start from thinking about accessibility.
Carrie, I know you spoke to this as your second point with regards to the user experience. So focusing in on that further, just in general, I know in the space, and often when we design products and experiences, we talk about usability over compliance, and accessibility is no different, right? And so what are your thoughts on focusing on the user experience and usability testing as part of the digital accessibility process?
Ronak, it's absolutely critical to focus on usability. When we look at accessibility as a checkbox, that's what it becomes, a checkbox. Most users don't know the WCAG guidelines and they don't care. They just want to be able to seamlessly use the experience. They want a delightful, easy to use experience that makes them want to come back. And it's so important to talk to people with disabilities, right? There's a saying, design with them, not for them. Ask them, how does this work? Let them show you how they use it. Include them in your user testing, hire them, have them become a part of your team. Usability is just so, so important and truly delivering experiences that work for everyone.
Last question I'm going to direct at you, Carrie, here. And I think this is a summation of everything that we've been discussing thus far. What are 2 to 3 key takeaways that you'd like to leave the audience with who may be a little skewed left or newer to their accessibility journey that they should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think the first is to keep in mind, your particular end-to-end journey, right, in your company. What does your customer experience? So accessibility is important at every step of the way. The email that goes out to someone that they then click on that takes them to your website, the emails they receive after they make a purchase, the returns process, customer care, everything, right? It's important to think of accessibility sort of along that journey. I would also say that accessibility doesn't typically happen by accident. Teams will sometimes say, we think it's accessible, or, we worked on, a little bit of accessibility. At the end of the day, really focus on building accessibility in from the beginning. It's much more cost effective, it's more efficient, and make sure you test, test. Talk to people with disabilities, really ensure that that experience is working. Use screen readers and other types of assistive technology to really make a difference. And the last thing I'll say is, think about things you can do today without incremental budget, right? Look at your design library. Look at your component library and see if you can just improve accessibility on some of those components, because those changes today will not only drive scale, but they will drive a more accessible tomorrow.
Carrie, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, experience, and key highlights across your personal story, as well as key learnings for the audience. Really appreciate your time. And I just want to thank you personally for all of the support that you've provided me through my journey. So thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you, Ronai, for having me. And it's just a pleasure to work with you and know you.
Wonderful. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to our CEO and co-founder, John Samuel, with an exciting announcement.
And thank you so much, Ronak, and thank you, Carrie. It is, I just always love hearing Carrie speak. And there's one that's like so many takeaways. I was taking all these notes. I'm a little bit frazzled from all this because one of the things I love that Carrie's talked about was how, accessibility isn't a checkbox, but it's a shift in culture, and that's something that we totally, I try to live by, and how we're trying to change the mindsets of people. So I love it. Then another thing that Carrie talked about was, one of her favorite things was like how the designer said we can design something that's, super cutting edge and award winning. But I'm about to show you something that's going to be super cutting edge in design and award winning. And oh yeah, it's also accessible. And that's why I'm super excited to be announcing our partnership with Csun, which is a watch company that I've been having for the last 3 years. I'm wearing it right now. And I had the opportunity to interview the founder and creator, Sue. And we're going to take a quick look at it, a quick interview that I did, just a portion of it. And you can always check out the full interview on our YouTube channel afterwards. But Sarah, can you play the clip?
That's awesome. When we think about Global Accessibility Awareness Day, it's really focused on digital accessibility. But when you think about accessibility and design, you talk a little bit about, making a product that's for everyone, but can you just share, what does accessibility mean to you?
Mm-hmm. So, accessibility is a very broad concept. And, we do inclusive design, universal design, and even those terms were created not so long ago. So everyone has different definitions. When I think about accessibility, one of stereotypes and people have towards the word accessibility, which I don't like, is that, they have the tendency to think about as something additional. You have to create something additional. You have to add something additional to make something accessible. And our approach is that, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend extra time, energy, and money to make something accessible. You just make, something that works for everyone from the beginning. That is our approach. So, that's why we created a watch that doesn't distinguish, between the sighted and the blind. It's not a watch that we added something onto it to make it accessible. So, to me, accessibility is an inclusion. It's it's not an addition. It's not an option. So that's the accessibility to me.
That's awesome. I love it. And so, what is one thing that you would like others to kind of take away for others that they can do to make their products and services more accessible?
Thought about, okay, let's make a watch for the blind. Then the first word that we thought about automatically was Braille, right? And as I mentioned, we thought it has to be something different. It's something that we add onto the existing products. So breaking that stereotype, breaking that mindset was the hardest. But once we did that, every process was very easy and it was so smooth. And we created something that no one did in the past. And while we could be successful in design community and commercially as well. So I really want our other designers and engineers to really try to break that stereotype and think out of that the box, the stereotype.
Yeah, I love it. So accessibility is not something you need to add on, but something you can build on. So it's something that I think is a great takeaway. And so do you have your watch with you right now? Can you show people and kind of
yes,
talk through it? Because I have mine right here, but I'd love to have you show it and kind of even just explain how it works.
So this is the timepiece that we created. So there's a ball bearing rotating on the surface, and then there's another ball bearing rotating on the side. So there's a crown here, and it just works the same way as the regular wristwatch, except that the time is indicated by the two ball bearings instead of the two hands. And you can touch, if you're sighted, you can tell time by either just looking at the position of the ball bearings or by touching the ball bearings. So even though you're sighted, and I use this quite often, if you are in a situation where sometimes it's hard or embarrassing to look down on your wrist to check time, right? For example, in the interviews or in a dinner with in-laws or during the lecture. So in those situations, I check time. I am able to check time by touching the ball bearings. And if you touch hard, it can slide. It can be dislocated, but just with a gentle shake, it always goes back to the correct time.
I hope that y'all enjoyed that. It was just a short clip of a longer interview that I had an opportunity to do with Csun. And this is a watch for everyone, and hope y'all go check out, take a look at it. And it's been so great to get to know the folks at E1, and they've been so gracious to give our participants today a 20% discount code. So it's ABLR20. So go to e1-time.com and go get your own E1 watch, which is super cool. And so we actually have a lot of cool things coming out this year in collaboration with E1. I hope y'all keep an eye out for that, because it's going to be really, really fun. I promise you. So now, as I'm looking at it, filling my time, I think it's time to move into the panel. And I'm really excited to have 3 amazing guests today. And so I met these folks at different stages in my accessibility journey. And so I hope you enjoy getting to learn from them. And so as we, if you have questions, please put them in the chat panel. We'll get to them afterwards. And that's also for Carrie and Ronak and myself. So please put in those questions in so we can get to those afterwards. But right now, I'd like to open up the panel and start talking to Andrew Crook, Alisa, Herr, and Mark Pope. And so Andrew, or Drew, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure I'm unmuted.
Yes, yeah, we're good.
Awesome. VoiceOver didn't tell me that I was. So hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Crook. I go by Drew if you want. I'm an accessibility engineer at CVS Health. I've also have a visual impairment. I have a congenital retinal condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis. So I've pretty much had vision loss ever since I was born, all the way through now. So I've grown up with kind of the advances in technology and, you know, using screen readers, starting with JAWS and Windows and moving into Mac and VoiceOver and everything in between. And what I do at CVS is I audit everything for accessibility, all their digital products for accessibility. I'm one of many on that team, as well as, you know, providing suggestions to the developers on implementation best practices and things like that.
Thank you, Drew.
Yeah.
Now let's go over to Alisa.
Hi, I am Alisa Herr, and I am the founder and CEO of Unity Web Agency. We are a certified B Corporation, and we are our focus is really in building accessible WordPress websites. So we love the idea of websites being award-winning and accessible. And we actually just recently found out that we won a Webby honoree for one of our websites that was accessible and beautiful. So I'm very excited about that. I guess that's it for me right now.
Thank you. And Mark.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'm Mark Pope with Pope Tech. Pope Tech provides web accessibility scanning and reporting. And so we help people take their websites and improve the accessibility through our automated testing platform. We're a family owned and run company. So when you're working with us, you're working with me and my brothers primarily. But our mission is to help people significantly improve web accessibility by helping web content creators make their content more accessible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. And so today, you know, I brought you three together because, as I mentioned, I met you all through different parts of my accessibility journey, but also in terms of partnerships. You know, I met Drew at a General Assembly webinar where we both were participating on. Alisa and I have been in contact for the last several years as she was building out, you know, helping her test to make sure that her websites are accessible. And with Mark, you know, we've been using Pope Tech for our accessibility you know, automated tools. So I'm super excited to have all of you here because you all represent a special part to me. And so when I think about it, you know, Drew, you talked about, you know, a part of your background that may have gotten you into your accessibility journey, but I'd love to, you know, hear from all three of you. You know, how did you get into accessibility and kind of where you were in your journey? And so, Drew, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I know I gave my broader background a minute ago, but so for me, where I'm at now, that all started when I was working right out of college. I worked for a financial firm. They updated their internals. I was there for 5 years, and about 4 years in, they updated their internal systems for all their employees, and they'd outsourced it offshore, and it was built with zero accessibility, like absolutely nothing, no tab order, no focus management, no screen reader compatibility, nothing. So it ended up kind of blocking me out of, you know, advancement at that company, and I just made the decision to move on. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And then I spent the last few years at Apple, more in a retail capacity, but getting a little bit more familiar with the Mac side of things and Apple's accessibility and what they do. And then I just took advantage of what happened last year with COVID, and I was out of work and said, I'm just going to take a 12-week immersive boot camp and figure this stuff out, because I've always been the person that likes to fix things, and I've always been outspoken in a good way to give feedback on, you know, accessibility barriers that I've encountered. And I wanted to be able to couple that with the knowledge of how to actually get underneath the hood and fix the code myself. And so that's how I'm where I am now.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And I'll jump over to Mark now. Mark, from you, you know, how did you know, your journey, how did you get into this journey of accessibility?
Yeah, so I mean, everyone like you, and I like that you're calling it a journey, right? Because that's really what it is. It's not like it happened one day, okay, I'm into accessibility. For me, it really has been a little bit more of a journey, but it hasn't been one with a lot of big aha moments, but more just a gradual development of that. And so So really, I was a lecturer at a university, and obviously there I'd worked with students who had come with letters of accommodation at the start of every semester, and we'd help them meet those accommodations. But you know, I didn't really internalize accessibility much more than, hey, yeah, I'm going to help these students meet their accommodations. My wife also is a school psychologist, so I'd encountered it that way as well too. You know, experiences of that she had, and like I said, there was these touch points, but for me, like I said, it was a little bit more gradual. My brothers called me up and said, hey, Pope Tech's about to launch an accessibility platform. You want to come join us? And I'd been talking about joining them for a while. And I was like, yeah, that actually sounds good, because what drove me to education was, how can I make a difference for people in the world, right? And as I learned more about web accessibility, I was like, this is something that really, really can make a difference for a lot of people in the world. But, you know, up to that point, it was kind of academic. But afterwards, as I got into and started working in accessibility, I really started catching the vision of it a lot more. You know, experiences like WebAIM's training that they do, which is a great training. WebAIM is a nonprofit group that does education training, evaluations of websites, as well as you know, provides the Wave tool that I'll talk about probably later. But the Wave training, WebAIM training, as part of that training, one of the experiences is they had an assistive technology user using a screen reader, a native assistive technology user, a blind person. And he walked us through his experience using websites, how he navigates it. And then he went to some websites that were designed with accessibility and some that weren't. And to me, that was like a big aha moment, right? Because you know, the two sites could look exactly the same, but one that's following accessibility guidelines and principles, he was able to navigate through and accomplish whatever he needed to, and the others he wasn't. And so that experiences like that, attending Csun conferences, which are awesome, because Csun is probably the largest assistive technology conference in the United States. And attending those conferences is great because you sit through sessions and learn things. That's the academic. But there's also a lot of individuals there, advocates, you know, vendors and participants using assistive technology and with disabilities there. And so interacting with people, seeing, you know, just how they interacted with the conference and technology and what their experiences were like, and talking with them. To me, that was the real difference, because you can really see how people can really be empowered when accessibility is embraced in a way that, you know, they have more barriers when it's not. And so, like I said, for me, it was a little more gradual. It wasn't like one day I decided, you know, it was more like once I started down this path and learned more, I've become more and more excited about it. And really, I tell people on calls, organizations, companies that I'm working with, I'm like, this is like one of the greatest things you can do. You know, we all want to say we want to wake up in the morning and go to a job where we're making a difference for people in the world. Well, that is what web accessibility is. And so, you know, that's kind of my story and where I'm at. If you grabbed one of my other brothers for the call, their story would be a little bit different, but you know, we love what we do, helping people make their websites accessible.
I love it. I love it. You know, we're all at different stages in our journey, and that's you know, it is. I think it is addictive, just like you said. It's just like snowball effects that get super into it. And with that, Alisa, will you share what your journey is?
Sure, yeah, happy to. My background, I've actually been developing websites since about 96, I think was when I learned how to code. And so as I was growing up, and I'm older than I look too, for those of you who can see. I always made it a challenge to myself to build websites like this, the least amount of code possible, like whatever I can do to make it elegant and simple was really my approach. And when I started working professionally as a developer about 12 or 13 years ago, I don't think that accessibility was even something that was talked about. I think I first learned about web accessibility, like it started to become mainstream maybe about 4 5 years ago,
Mm.
I don't know. And so when I started my company in 2016, I knew that was what we needed to do. I'm in the same boat of like wanting to help people. And my husband actually has MS. And so I'd seen some of the challenges that he had in regards to like physical access places, and also just the cultural cultural like inclusion of people with disabilities, and wanted to change that and through my work. And so starting a company that really focuses on, from the ground up, making sure that everything that we do is accessible, just fit right at home with everything in my history and my family and where I wanted to go and how I want to show up in the world.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you for being intentional about it and building it in everything you do. And so, we are here to celebrate GAAD, or Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day to you all. And so, I wanted to know from all of you, why do you think it's important that we celebrate this day? And what does it mean to you? And I'd like to start off with Mark.
Yeah, thanks, John, and happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day as well. It goes back to the story that I was sharing about my experience, right? At some level, awareness is where it all begins. And academic awareness is great, but when we can actually sit down and chat with people and hear their real life experiences, which I really see, over the past few years that I've been involved at some level with Global Accessibility Awareness Day, is really what the push of it is. Let's get people together and let's talk about this and talk about real experiences and really where we're at. And to me, that's really what makes the big difference here. And so that's one reason I love it. Yes, it has that sort of academic, yes, it's a day of accessibility awareness, but getting people together and talking about it, that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah, for sure. And Lisa, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that for me, this is actually, I was surprised to hear that GAAD was 10 years old.
I know,
is that
right?
what you said?
Yeah, it's 10 years.
10 years, I'd never heard of it before. So I don't know why I'd never heard of it before. Maybe you just didn't tell me about it last year.
I know.
But so I feel a little bit embarrassed by that, but I'm sure other people here are in the same boat as me.
You're right.
So I think it's really fantastic that we're getting the word out to as many people as possible that accessibility is important, because anytime I bring it up with somebody that hasn't thought about accessibility, their minds are blown. And so let's keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Drew, you last year went through that GA course or the boot camp. And so, is this your first time with the GA celebration, or have you been, with the GAAD celebration, or have you done this before?
I have done it before. This is actually part of what I was gonna bring up. It's for me, this is the first kind of official panel event that I've been part of. In all of my other jobs and all the way back, I'm usually just kind of the guy that knows accessibility, and I'm the one that puts it. I'm you for whatever company I work for, and I just do it locally for my little circle. Yeah. So this is great, because one thing that I'm kind of pulling away from this that I love and I want to keep doing is that above and beyond bringing that awareness and sharing that out. And yes, we have this, to what Mark said, we have this day that we kind of have this academic discussion, but it also, kind of inspires people. This is like the spark that gets us to next year's GAAD, where we're all talking about it. All of our circles of influence are talking about it. And then it just kind of spreads and becomes more of a, I don't want to say movement, but it just becomes more of a top of mind, topic.
Yeah.
But also kind of a side effect of that is things like this, where we're all talking together and we're all sharing in our experiences. We're already all bought into accessibility, but maybe Mark might say something in a couple of minutes that I've never heard of before, or
yeah, for sure.
I might say something that you've never heard of, and we just kind of share in that collective interest, which is great.
Yeah, I love it. And Drew, I think this is gonna be the first of many events for you.
Probably. I'm just gonna be on speed dial for you.
For sure. I mean, I enjoyed our conversation last time. I was like, no, it was like a no-brainer. So, so kind of going to this thing, Lisa, we talk about this is your first Global Accessibility Awareness Day because you didn't know about it last year. So, I know that a lot of people, you talked about 5 years ago, kind of started getting mainstream. How are you educating your clients that it's important to build accessibility in the foundation of it, and that you got to pay for it. You got to do this. It's just needed, right? It's just a part of it.
Yeah, and I want to correct myself a little bit. When I said mainstream, I meant mainstream with developers,
Yeah, sure.
and not the
Yeah.
large,
Yeah.
which is why we're all here.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
In terms of educating our clients, I actually just wanted to say too that when I first started Unity, a big focus of it for me was accessibility, but we were dealing with the bias of people thinking that accessibility meant stripping away beauty or making it just like more functional than beautiful. And like people, when they want to invest in a website, the main decision makers who are the ones spending the money are the ones that are thinking about how eye-catching can this be? How can this make our brand stand out from the visual side of things? And so we were really competing in this space with agencies who had, and we were new too. So agencies that had this really high level of design. And so we didn't actually say a whole lot about accessibility to begin with. It was always something that we did and we talked about after they'd come in the door.
Yeah.
But about a year ago, we switched and we said up front, we are an accessibility website design agency. And so we have made it so much more a part of what we do for everybody. It's not optional. It's not a secret. It's up first. People know immediately. And I would say that it's been nice that more people have come to us looking for accessibility features on their website, or not features, but like an accessible website, because of the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Which I've been happy to see, but that's how we have been educating people on accessibility for their website. Is a lot of our clients are in that space of being a nonprofit or being a mission-driven business or something, but if they haven't thought about accessibility, or they haven't decided that it's worth investing in for whatever reason, they might think that it's just too expensive or something.
Yeah.
What our position on that is, if you have other DEI initiatives and you leave this out, that's a problem. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I'm not usually that blunt about it to them, but I say that in a nice way.
Yeah, no, you got to. Going to Drew, there's a couple of things. And Drew, I think you're an Apple fanboy, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't realize you worked before.
Guilty.
Yeah, I know. I remember when we spoke, you talked about being a fanboy, and kind of going to Lisa's, kind of what her statement about that again, and what Carrie talked about, design and accessibility, and I know you could go down that and just talk about how Apple's done a great job in terms of making their products accessible and beautiful. And one of the things I wanted to touch on real quick was, I know that CVS gets it. They've invested a lot into it, but why do you think other organizations haven't really adopted accessibility yet? Like, why haven't they put that kind of focus that CVS has?
Yeah, I think now, honestly, we're starting to see a shift. But I think before, things like Global Accessibility Awareness Day definitely helped. Things being much more, and I might credit it to social media and things being more in our faces all the time.
Yeah.
But we were that kind of silent majority a lot of the times back in the dark days of the early 2000s and the 90s, when it was just like, and it was kind of funny because if you think about it, and this is like really quick, but 90s early websites were pretty accessible because it was just HTML. It was just text. So most of the time you could get through that. But then like mid 2000s to like 2015 is when everything started getting fancy, and you had modals, and you had you know, these pop-ups and all these dynamic responsive websites that, yeah, they visually look stunning, but they lacked for, you know, accessible design. So I think it's kind of like a wave, if you will. You know, it started with kind of the bare bones of just writing HTML, really no CSS or any sort of styling, and then it got super fancy and not accessible, and now I think you're finding that normalization where you can still be fancy and still be, you know, amazing to look at, but also have that accessibility piece to it. And to your point, when you're talking about Apple and Microsoft, I'll give them credit, and, and other companies too, you know, they're doing a lot behind the scenes to make accessibility more approachable and more attainable for developers, whether that be mobile developers, native app developers, or web developers. You know, they have their accessibility APIs. They have a lot of documentation that you can follow to, you know, make sure you're setting yourself up for success above and beyond some of the other things that you have to do to make your individual components for like web-based apps accessible. So I think the tooling is there, the education is there, the buy-in is getting there. So all those things are going to just come together. And I think, you know, moving forward, it's going to be a lot easier for a lot of people.
Okay, no, that's totally cool. Like and I think you're right. It is a way of finding that kind of equilibrium, that balance where it's meeting design and accessibility. And so, you know, kind of going into Mark, I know we're running up against time as I feel my E1 watch, feel it. And so Mark, real quick, you know, you talked about it, and Drew just mentioned, you know, now we have the tools. Pope Tech brings the tool that we need, but we still need manual testing. So how do you educate your clients, you know, to say, look, this is the automated piece is one portion, but then the manual, how do you educate your clients on that? And we'll end on that.
Yeah, awesome. That's a great question there, John. And you know, at Pope Tech, because of our mission for improving accessibility, we're very upfront with our clients and talk about the role of automated testing. And it is great, right? Because it adds a lot of breadth. You can do site-wide testing of all the pages, detect the low-hanging accessibility errors. But the real magic of it, I think, is that it helps your people level up in accessibility. And it helps change the culture of accessibility and the conversations when you do that as well too. But you're really fixing accessibility errors. But in the end, automated testing, depending on how you count things, is only going to get 20 to 40% of the accessibility errors by itself. Then there's automated detected, which requires human confirmation stuff, as well as items that are being highlighted in like a testing platform like ours for manual testing. But even after that, we still tell people, you know, the proof's in the pudding, right? How does it work for assistive technology? You got to get in there with keyboard based technologies, keyboard navigation, and screen reader testing. And, you know, going through the process of leveling up, and we talk to our clients about how to do that. We believe that any company can be empowered to do that. But a lot of times it's great to have companies like yours too that can help them do that heavy lifting of that manual testing in the end as well too. And so, you know, it's definitely indispensable. We never try to oversell the role of automated testing, but we believe it is a very powerful tool that companies that have more than say 30, 50 pages on their website, you know, that free wave tool is great, one page at a time. Go use that. But if you're doing more pages than that, then maybe automated testing is something that can help you get to the next level and provide monitoring. So yeah, but the two are connected, interconnected. You can't, I couldn't imagine doing it without either one.
No, for sure. No, appreciate that. And thank you all. I know we're running up against time. Ronak is going to get mad at me. I'm so sorry, but it was just so much fun talking to y'all. And, you know, and Alisa, you know, Jennison Asuncion, who is the head of accessibility engineering over at LinkedIn. He's going to be very angry at me that you didn't know about this. So apologies, Jennison. But thank you all for taking the time. And so Ronak, pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, John, and thank you to all of our panelists for taking the time to contribute to this webinar. Alisa from Unity Web Agency, Mark from Pope Tech, Drew from CVS Health, Carrie from Walmart, and Hyung Soo and the entire E1 team. A heartfelt thank you. And so I hope that yields us to believe that, you know, bottom line is we can't do this alone. And I think that's what GAAD represents. And so partnerships are an integral piece of our strategy to accelerate our growth and really to maximize our impact. So just wanted to take a moment and to pause and to recognize and appreciate our partners. And also for all of you listening out there, definitely want to encourage you to reach out to discuss how we can potentially collaborate together. And so at this point, I'm going to hand it off to our moderator, Sarah, to direct our Q&A for the remainder of our time. Sarah?
Awesome. Thanks, Ronak. All right, so we got some questions. So let me get into those and I'll read them out loud for everybody. First question, how can my company recruit more individuals with disabilities?
Oh, wow, that's great. You know, I'll take this one. I'll jump in real quick. I love this. So yeah, I think that, you know, our parent company at Ablr is LCI, which is the largest employer of Americans who are blind. And you know, one of the things that we've really focused on is, as we're moving, is really kind of creating pathways for employment. And so, you know, one of the things we're doing is launching a new workforce development program, which we're super excited about. That's going to be, we're doing some pilots at the end of the summer. But I also think that, you know, a great source to, you know, is also with the services for the blind. Each state has a department or division of services for the blind, folk rehab. So states are doing a lot now to help get out there. But then we also have a great partner, Ronak, you know, Chronically Capable, which is one of our closest partners out there right now. And, you know, they have a platform that's helping people with disabilities find employment opportunities with companies who are looking for that. I don't know if anyone else has any input on that. All right.
Yeah, I think you conveyed it perfectly, John.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Okay, next question. What is the best way to identify those in your organization who identify as having a disability? Are there legal considerations to keep in mind or preferred methods that can be used to identify those who are having accessibility challenges with products in our organization?
This is Carrie. I'm happy to comment. So first I'll say, I'm not going to comment on the legal stuff because I'm not a lawyer, so I would encourage folks to check with their internal legal teams. But some of the methods that have been used in various companies that have been successful are, one is rolling out a voluntary self-ID program where associates can self-identify as a person with a disability, as well as, you know, other types of, you know, they can self-identify as someone as part of the LGBTQ population and so on and so forth. So one would be providing self-ID. The second, I think is really, really important, which is creating an environment where people feel comfortable to disclose or to be themselves. And so, you know, having discussions on the value that people with disabilities bring to the workforce, bringing in speakers who talk about, you know, again, how people with disabilities drive innovation and how it's so important, you know, to hire people with disabilities. Making sure managers are trained, right? If someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to share that I'm having trouble with X, or I'm suffering from depression, I may need some time off. Just having those tools to be able to support someone and say, you know, thank you for sharing. How can I help you, right? Versus, okay, well, you need to talk to HR, or, you know, what do you want me to do? You know, just having the ability to support people and make them feel comfortable for sharing. And then the other one I'll say is just think about accommodations. And, you know, some companies I've seen do this extremely well, and others will say, you know, sort of as an asterisk, if you need an accommodation, please feel free to reach out to blah, blah, blah. Versus if you just change the tone, right? Hey, here at insert company name, we want you to be your best self, and we want you to be happy, and we want you to be able to do your best work. If there's anything that we can do to, you know, make this environment better for you, let us know. Like, we're here to help, and we're here to provide accommodations that, you know, allow you to do X, Y, Z, right? So there's a real difference in the way that we communicate the accommodations process. And so I think that's key as well.
Mm. Yeah, Carrie, I think it's so evident that it's such the legal component surrounding this question is such a small facet of this broader piece that you're speaking to, which I believe is really, in summation, a systemic culture shift in the organization with multiple touch points and behaviors and tools and resources. And it's kind of interesting because I think John and I were actually talking about this very topic this morning. So John, did you want to add a...
No, I mean, I agree. We were just talking about it. And I think it goes back to that statement that Carrie talked about earlier. It was like, we got to shift the culture, right? And that's what it is, for sure. But I know we're running up on time right now. So, one of the things we can do to be respectful of everyone's time, maybe, Sarah, we can take the questions we have and send out the, respond to them and send it out to the audience.
Sure, absolutely. I can do that.
Cool. So, we're going to close it out, or anyone do this?
Yeah, just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us in celebration and recognition of this 10th anniversary. That's right, 10th anniversary of Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
Thank you all, and thank you all the guests. And we are so thankful to have you all as our allies and our partners and friends. So thank you all.
Thank you.